Hello, my friends, and welcome back to San Cabrillo Zoo. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day as we get started today on not just one, but two habitats, both for little fox friends. We're building for the Fennec fox and the bat-eared fox mod from Gen. So without further ado, let's get started. So I already know the bat-eared fox is not an official frontier animal. I'm just going to address this right off the bat. San Cabrillo Zoo, while it is going to be a no modded pieces project, I will occasionally sneak in kind of like a modded animal here and there, just to help fit the themes a little bit better. So far, I really haven't had the need to, and honestly, I could have gotten away with just doing Fennec Fox in here. However, I still felt like we should really start to lean into a few more modded animals, and the bat-eared fox is a beautiful one right off the bat. So as we get started in here, I do want to address the fact that yes, I did originally say that this episode was going to have the cheetah in here. However, I was very taken aback by how much of a process this would be to even get these little mesh enclosures to look right, and how long it would take to even achieve that. It took me a quite long time for me to do that, but I think in all, I'm just saying words at this point, I think it turned out pretty good, and I think it deserved its own episode too. Can you guys blame me? I just love the little Fennec fox. So as we start to place down some little fences in here, if you have been to the San Diego Zoo, which this park is going to be heavily based off of. If it's not going to be based off of the San Diego Zoo, it's probably either going to be based off of occasionally the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, or SeaWorld, or Birch Aquarium, just all the animal facilities in San Diego. This is kind of going to be like my master project for all that stuff. Maybe if I do get lucky enough to go to like the rest of California, I might start to interlope some of like those themes in there, like the old Sacramento Zoo and stuff like that. But for the time being, this is just going to be San Diego. So you can tell that this is already based off of the sort of old Elephant Mesa area, which is now called Urban Jungle. This area is very much a hot take within the zoo community. A lot of people love it for its older charm, but a lot of people hate it because of its inadequate welfare for the most part. Like the giraffes, they could use a lot more space. Even the hippos could probably use a lot more water space if I'm being honest, but luckily for them, their habitat is currently being redone right now, which is very cool to see. Kind of like the progress on that. Hopefully it'll be done relatively soon. Very excited to see that. But you can see right over here, we are working on this little corner that you might just pass by upon your visit to San Diego Zoo. This originally is for, I believe it was actually originally for the crested porcupine, binturong, all these really weird animals that kind of snuck their way into this section. However, there also was, I think the Fennec foxes were also in here too. I can't really remember. San Diego Zoo is so big that I forgot what I was seeing half the time. So I'm just keeping that stuff in mind. Also keeping in mind like the backstage over here, I don't really do too much with it. But I kind of outline the stuff so that once I actually do feel like, you know, kind of completing the section, maybe putting down some like extra utilities, maybe like a generator or like a dumpster back here, I'll have this already kind of set up for me to just plop down some really awesome workshop blueprints in. Which, by the way, I have been seeing this kind of like age-old debate resurfacing. If you guys do tend to use blueprints, that is totally fine. If you are thinking that it's cheating in any way, it really isn't. Frontier put this system out so that you could save time. People make blueprints so that you can save time. Someone, like let's just say Drac, Haribo, all these people, they take the time to do like these small piece animals, these small utility pieces, all this stuff so that you don't need to spend the time that they did to do the exact same thing. This is always what I say. It's always kind of like my little diction whenever it comes to, you know, building in Planet Zoo, when it comes to all that kind of stuff. And it's like, it's always a system that you should use. You should take advantage. So far, I really haven't had the need to use too many blueprints in here, but that's really because I haven't needed to use any, because I'm going for like very custom unique foliage. I'm going for very custom unique kind of like fence work, path work that really fits this zoo in particular. And it's something that I'm like, someone else might have made it, but I feel a lot better if I just make it myself. So I did see that debate kind of resurfacing, so definitely take advantage of blueprints wherever you can, especially the blueprint set for this kind of like section for my quote-unquote urban jungle recreation. This will be out relatively soon. After the next habitat, I want to say, I'll kind of like do the cheetah speed build, and then I'll do like a little I want to do like a cinematic trailer for it, kind of like taking good use of whatever we just got on the last update, the cinematic camera, and do like a quick little trailer on it, like, hey, welcome to urban jungle or something, or whatever else I could decide to call it. But I'm hoping to do that. I had my good friend Remnant send me some nice little videos of the San Diego Zoo, so we can kind of like draw comparisons between them for that little video. Super excited for that. That's going to be super fun to show off. But you can see we're getting started on the first cage over here. Unfortunately, these animals do live in cages. When I build in Planet Zoo, I'm very much leaning in towards the realism aspect. Not in all cases, like let's just say Castaway Keys. I just sent that over to my good buddy San to do a few enclosures in there because I really wasn't feeling it. I'm very much in the realistic mindset right now. But let's just say, for example, Castaway Keys, that's very much a hyper fantasy kind of zoo. Some other zoos I've had have been very much implied realism, where it's kind of like I want to go realistic with it, but I don't want to do the work that it involves. It's always so much harder whenever I have to do that. However, this zoo is entirely realistic, and I kind of forgot the point that I was making. Oh yeah, okay, so it's entirely realistic, which means some enclosures are going to be functionally bad. If you turn on welfare in this zoo, you are going to get a lot of sad notifications from these animals. Be it the giraffes, they don't have enough space. Be it the Fennec hawks, they don't have enough space. This is just a reflection of the real life. I mean, a zoo as fantastic as San Diego Zoo, I know some people in the comments have said in the past that they're really only the best because they look the best. And yeah, that is also true. They have the most grandiose habitat design in the world. But it's very important to keep in mind when you are doing like realistic Planet Zoo creations that not everything can be perfect. Everything can have its flaws, and I feel like being able to masterfully kind of demonstrate those flaws in a zoo is so much more interesting to me, at least, than going for the quote-unquote perfect zoo. Going for everything in this zoo has the best habitats, they have the best welfare. To me, that's not challenging enough. I really want something that pushes me to think less. Something that pushes me to think about a much more realistic situation, which unfortunately is the case for many zoos. A lot of zoos, even around me, don't have really the pinnacle of welfare. A lot of zoos around you probably don't either. I'm thinking like, you know, we might have your Columbus zoos and your Toledo zoos, but you also have a few backyard zoos over there that have their bad habitats. Even Columbus Zoo probably has its own bad habitats too. It's just something to always keep in mind when you are building like this. However, I'm doing my best to give these animals everything that they need in these habitats, so it's still kind of cool to see. So you can see right over here, we are working on these little corn crib cages. Nothing really too crazy about this. It starts to get a little crazy once we actually do get into like, you know, the roofing of this. I'm not really a big mesh person. You might notice that my mesh builds in Planet Zoo, they're very few and far between. I don't really like to do that. I prefer my open air enclosures. However, if I'm doing a faithful recreation, not really recreation, but retelling of the San Diego parks, I'm gonna have to go with the stuff that is typically something that I would not build myself. And that's gonna include the big aviaries, like the Owens and Parker's aviaries. I will be kind of doing versions of those, and it's gonna be very interesting to see how that's gonna play out, especially considering if we are getting birds eventually. Of course, I don't really know anything about birds yet, but hopefully we can get some soon. I feel like that'd be very fun. But however, you could see we are doing every single little aspect of this and we're trying our best with it. I feel like one of the better advantages of doing a build like this is taking advantage of the natural placement of this setting. So using a lot of that beautiful foliage in here. San Diego Zoo has some of the best foliage I've ever seen in a zoo. I think it kind of takes the cake over like my Florida zoos I tend to prefer. But it's still so gorgeous to see how well it plays out. And I don't know, it's just very fun to kind of work with that little challenge in there. It's so cool. But working out over here, I had to add a door in for the keepers. Right now, this door is kind of just like the small, short door. I will be retrofitting that relatively soon. I'm not a big fan of that. It kind of just blended in fairly well, but I'm not too sold on it just yet, so I will be fixing that up relatively soon. Not right now, not immediately, but once I do like an overpass of this section, I will be touching that kind of stuff up. I will be making sure that like no stone is left unturned. I'm going to take into account like, you know, working on all the beauty in this zoo and all the warts too. Why not? So with that being said, I was like, okay, I can't just do one habitat. So that was kind of like the nail in the coffin again that kind of told me, hey, I'm going to work on the bat-eared fox now. I'm super, super excited too. So it's honestly the same exact concept, but just a little bit more of a different shape for this. And I'm doing like a different way of doing that kind of trim on the top. I'm placing down kind of like those beams first, and then after I place those down, I'll kind of go through and fix up kind of like the columns that are keeping those up. Again, very faithful, or at least I try to be faithful to what was happening in the San Diego Zoo at least. And I think I got it relatively down to a T. Not really, of course, a one-to-one recreation, but at least the concepts of what this would look like, I think I kind of brought to the table fairly well. And you can see I'm doing even like smaller stuff too. I'm doing like kind of like the lining on the bottom of these poles just to make sure that everything is nice, congruent and stuff like that. Always going on the top view and disabling climbing, because that is a wonderful way to kind of reduce lag. I need to do a video on that relatively soon, just so it's like, you know, always in people's feeds or whatnot. How often do my videos appear in your feeds? I'm like super curious about that. Are there like videos that you typically don't click on? I'm so like curious about that, because my videos never really get recommended to me myself, but I'm super intrigued to see if like, you know, they appear often for you guys. I feel like that'd be a really, really fun conversation topic for you guys to bring up. So yeah, I'm going back to using that lovely underbed of the flower bed, underside of the flower bed right there. So I kind of just flip that upside down to get a new mulch texture, which fits a lot more better for kind of like planted areas and such. And the other kind of mulch I use for a lot more kind of like dense foliage mulch covers. It's a lot more darker, which means it's probably a lot more saturated with water, which means it probably doesn't get that much sunlight. So that's kind of like my typical rule when it comes to that stuff, at least for this park in particular. Placing down a few more trees just to help center this place, help it feel like it lives in the middle of a zoo at least. Because if I just left this as it kind of was without those background trees, it wouldn't have kind of like the placement inside of the zoo that I wanted. So that's kind of like what I try and implement right there. Another thing over here too is working on the top of the mesh. Really difficult. I was not exactly particular with how the mesh was laid out. If you look up inside of the habitat, it doesn't really look like it should exist. However, I still think I did a relatively fine job with trying to take into account kind of like how that mesh would kind of overlap on itself, because you see we're working on at least 1 or 2 or 3 different angles, and it's just something to keep in mind right there. Also using some quick little traffic cones from the workshop. I forgot who actually made them, but I just use them as a way to kind of place up and down that roofing. So I can easily pop in here and without any obstruction of shadows start to edit the inside of these habitats, which was really simple and easy to do. That's like also one of the reasons why I don't really like to do aviaries and like mesh cages. There really isn't any challenge when it comes to the landscaping of it. So I kind of had to make my own little challenge by doing like little faux rocks and stuff. And doing like all this unique gravel work, all that kind of stuff, even using like those decals right there. Really easy way to break up the texture a little bit more, which I thought was super fun. Especially when you're looking at it from the outside in, you only have like an obstructed view, which is a little bit of a shame because I wish Planet Zoo had like maybe like an autofocus tool where you could kind of look inside a habitat and not really have that mesh obstruct your vision all too much. But hey, I mean, we can't, one feature at a time, guys. Let's see if we could get like, you know, new transport rides next. Also doing a few decals on this ground texture itself, because this would be a typically older section. I did want to include like a few decals that kind of said, oh, this path has kind of seen its wear and tear over time. I do want to break out this path so it isn't just one big concrete slab eventually, but that'll be something I'll work on relatively soon. Not immediately, but hopefully soon I could actually get cracking on that. What I also do over here is just do some leaves on the top of this build, because it would be implied that this would be covered just so that a lot of leaves wouldn't go into this habitat. So I have some leaves kind of sticking on the top of those canvas pieces right there. I think that was a fun little trick that I did, especially with adding the decals on those canvas pieces. I thought that turned out pretty neat right there. Adding some like finishing touches in the backstage as well just helps center the build a bit more. And I believe we should be off into the cinematics anytime now. But before we do, I want to thank you guys for stopping by. It always does mean a lot that you guys still watch these little humble little videos. Not really sure what the next Planet Zoo DLC is going to be. We kind of entered like that dead period in between the DLCs, but at least we have the anniversary animal to look forward to, so that's going to be very fun to see how that's going to turn out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Be sure to stay subscribed. We hit 15,000. Oh my god, we gotta talk about that later, but the video is already over. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. If you guys did enjoy, be sure to subscribe. Hey, we might hit 20,000 this year. Who knows? Again, thank you all so much. Have the most wonderful days, and goodbye.
It's an honor, and we thank you a lot for believe in people for who they are.